Yes.
Okay, there we go. Hey, welcome everybody to North Bend City Council meeting for February 2nd, 2021. Welcome to Groundhog's Day. Wait a minute, I think I might have said that before, I'm not sure. But setting aside bad humor, call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please confirm the roll?
All council members are present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
Here.
Tonight on the agenda, we've got a lot of good items on the consent agenda, 10 different items, a presentation by our Parks Commission and our police services, following with a couple of resolutions. So a lot of good stuff tonight. And I thank you all for being here with us. So first up, consent agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
I have a motion by member Godhealth, second by member Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move to citizen comments. We do know we have a couple of items on the agenda a little later that you might wish to comment on particularly. So this portion of the agenda is for you to speak on items not on tonight's agenda. If you would like to speak, please indicate in the chat box or by *9 if you are on the phone, and you'll be called upon. You'll have up to 3 minutes to comment, and we would ask that you state first your name and address for the record, and we'll get going with that. Thank you.
Okay, first up, Michael Thomas, you have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. This is Michael Thomas, 1231 La Forest Drive, SE. Thank you, council members and the rest of the public for attending. As a citizen who's lived here for about 6 years, I'm extremely disturbed at the rate of growth in our beautiful city. We continue to see many ill effects of growth, deforestation, increasing pavement, traffic, and in some degrees, it's destroying why I think many of us may have moved here. We appreciate the nature that we've been given. We appreciate our views. And there's a lot of sense of loss throughout the city. And many of us are very concerned about, our environment, our lakes, our forests, the impacts, to rivers for all this development and runoff. Just to name a few, we're paving over our city. That's got to hurt the rivers. We're taking, trees and forested areas. We live in close proximity to forests. So this is, very troubling to us as citizens. And we know that we're so far beyond our growth management targets of 2035 and 2031. There was an excellent speech earlier tonight about that. When is this, going to stop? Are we going to not be left with, any environment? Are we not going to be left with, rivers? When does this really stop? And we just seem to be so beyond and outstripping our area. It's no longer, the gateway to the parks and the areas like, the Middle Fork. I think we've lost something here. Maybe we've lost some direction in our city. And I'm increasingly concerned. I think there's many other citizens that are just crying out that, enough is enough. And we really need to rethink, what we're doing. And I hope that, council listens to, some of the other things that are likely to be said later on this topic. And we're really concerned by this. It's not maybe something that we need to rethink. Also, one item for practice for the city packet, I noticed that citizen comments that I know made it in time for the packet were not included. And that is respect to the comments with the later resolution on the water system plan. So I'm very concerned about the practice that citizen comments do get included in the packet, especially when they make it before the agenda is published. And this was a prior practice. And I would hope that you would take care to do that. Thank you very much. This concludes my comment.
Thank you, Michael. Before we call on the next person, I am seeing and very pleased to see a large number of folks join us today. If you joined just after I made my comments, two things about the chat box. Number one, it is for indicating if you wish to speak. There's no dialogue that should be going on in that chat box. Secondly, this is the portion where we're taking comment on items not on the agenda. I believe there are quite a few folks here who want to speak on items later in the agenda. We'll ask you to hold your request to speak on those items till later so that staff doesn't lose track of you. We definitely want to make sure we call on you. So it's indicate in the chat box or *9 if you're on the phone. Dawn?
Okay, next up is Mark Jocelyn. Please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes. And again, this is not on the water system plan.
Yes, good evening. Thanks so much. Mark Jocelyn, 425 Southeast 5th Street, North Bend. Thanks for all you do. I appreciate your public service to us and the community and our fine city. Thank you for the snowflakes and the flower baskets in the summertime and watering them and caring for them. I know it costs money, but I'm worried about them going forward because it's one of the things that might first get cut from the budget. You know, the city is growing, as it sounds like you might be hearing a lot about. And I appreciate all you do to provide services, but costs have to be going up. I know that personnel costs are going up. That's the most significant part of your budget. And so I'm very disappointed you did not take the 1% increase 2 months ago at budget time. I wasn't paying enough attention. I would have spoken up and encouraged you strongly to do that. To me, it's a failure to best serve our city. The city should come first before ideology or any practice. And it's like a retirement plan going forward. If to pass on 1 year of growth plays out over years and over decades, and you never get that money back, you've set this, city back tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars over time in positions and so forth. And that to me is, a mistake. And that's all. So I know it's hard, but again, I appreciate your service and please keep it up, but put the interests of the city first going forward. And thanks for the snowflakes and the flowers. I think they are just gorgeous.
Thank you, Mark.
Next up, Mike Hansen. Please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is Vincent. 485 East in North Bend, inside view. I've got a couple of items to speak about, so I'll try to go through them pretty. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone in the city for working with our association's attorney to get the city or the sidewalk and streets issue kind of. I know it's been back, so I think it's on the consent agenda this evening, and so I'd like to thank everyone for their hard work on that. Kind of leads into my next is now that is going to be settled. There is a bunch of, or at least some money earmarked for potential sidewalk improvement plans. I'd really like to that our neighborhood is given consideration. A couple places in sidewalks that are particularly bad. One of them, which has had some a few of them have had asphalt shims in place the past few years, but the roots that are pushing the sidewalk slabs up are actually going well beyond where you have. I think we have one section that's a foot high, where the shim goes up about 6 inches, and now it's doubled size. I know it's pretty trouble. A lot of people are getting injured there. So knowing that there's a certain amount of money, and it's hard to figure out where owning a home and having a certain amount of money and having an aging home, I can totally relate the problem. But I would ask that there's a good consideration, at least if temporary measure can be put in place where people are getting hurt. That would be important. There's another thing as well. There's a vacant lot in our neighborhood that the city currently owns. It's on the street and kind of goes between 10th Street and what is kind of known as. There is currently a chain link fence, a divider between the two neighborhoods, and the city owns the lot, I believe, for us to some of the utilities that kind of run between the properties. And it's come to our attention through two of our homeowners that adjacent to the lot that there's a plan to open it up and kind of make a opening area for people to just come to the neighborhood from there. And we're kind of concerned about having another entrance into the neighborhood. Totally understand the city, it's their property, they can do what they would like with it. But I do have concerns if we're going to open it up and increase the pedestrian traffic that's done in a safe manner. Looked up the
Mark, I need
parcel.
you to finalize summary.
Nope. So quickly, currently that property, if it's going to be used for a pedestrian access, I asked all per concern make sure that it's safe and people can cross the street to the sidewalk without any hindrance.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Kenneth Nero, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening.
Dennis?
Thank you, council members, for allowing us to be part of this meeting. My commentary will mostly pertain to the WSP.
Kenneth, could you start please with full name and address for the record? Thank you.
Yeah, this is Kenneth Nero. I live at 1161 Forester Boulevard Southwest in North Bend, 98045. I'd just like to say that my wife and I moved to this area specifically because it's remote, because it's in the mountains, and because there are lakes and rivers and trails in abundance here. And we really love this place. And I wouldn't want to be the only person that stands in the way of the growth of the town. But for me as a resident, the growth is a secondary consideration to the reason for living here. And that's all I have to say until it's time to talk about the WSP.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Jeff Kruger, you have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself.
Jeff Kruger, 13709 457 Avenue Southeast in North Bend. You know, I keep hearing some of the justifications for a lot of things that are going on in our city over the last 10, 15, 20 years. That we need more revenue, we need more revenue, we need more revenue. It's a consistent theme. Doesn't matter who's the executive, doesn't seem to matter who is sitting in the council seats. The common theme is we need more revenue. So we have to have growth to support the revenue. But then at some point, that growth that supported the revenue requires more revenue, which requires more growth. And we've gotten into this vicious cycle out here where we live in an upper valley surrounded by mountains. We have an area that's limited in its resources and that's limited in its geography. We have one main road through, which is the freeway, the area, and we have one main road through town, which is North Bend Way, which chokes right down at the post office. When there's anything that happens, traffic out here grinds to a halt. We've all experienced it. At some point, I would just ask our council members, and I know we have a heavy weighting towards development and real estate folks and people on our council who have businesses, and so I understand that. But at some point, I would ask you to ask yourselves, where does the cycle stop? Revenue growth, revenue growth, revenue growth. At some point, we run out of the ability to grow. And I'm concerned that that point's going to come far too late to save this upper valley area. It's not a NIMBY response. It's that we have a certain number of resources. I think as a city, we've done our job for the Pacific Northwest. I've grown up here, 58 years here. So I've seen it happen on the east side. We've done our job out here. At some point, somebody needs to be able to step forward and say, we have to rethink some of these things. And, you know, it seems like this might be an opportunity, but the experience has just been that things just kind of just get shoved through. Thank you. I'll speak later on the WSP.
Thank you.
There is nobody else.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have a couple of presentations. So first we have, I believe with us tonight, Commissioner Chair of the Parks Commission, Rudd, to tell us about the Parks Commission report for 2021. Are you with us tonight? It's hard for me to see on the screen.
Good evening. Yes, this is Mina Rudd with the North Bend Parks Commission. And thank you for this opportunity to highlight some of our actions from last year and our plans for 2021. As a full report has been provided, the following is just a brief summary for you all. Due to the pandemic, we met virtually as we are this evening, and we continued our work on a number of projects. We did welcome 2 new commissioners on the virtual platform, Tim Talovich and a youth member, Luke Duval. I'm sorry about my video wasn't off, corrected. Let's move on. And we greatly missed our opportunity to meet in person for our annual parks tour. And due to the budget considerations, we did not actually spend the $5,000 small park improvement budget last year. However, we greatly appreciate the availability of this fund, and we do plan to utilize it in 2021. One of our highlights last year was establishing an arts advisory position to the commission. So this role supports our efforts with city beautification projects that interact with art. A local resident, Deborah Landers, she interviewed and has been appointed to serve in this capacity. Some of the projects last year that we reviewed and made recommendations on include the city's new park regulations. These help address the management, use, and conduct within parks as our city and park system continues to grow. The recreation service plans, space plans, I should say, within future residential developments, including the Tree Farm subdivision, the Habitat for Humanity townhomes, and the Cade View townhomes. The Tollgate Farmstead conceptual site plan for the agricultural infrastructure improvements. These include the new barn, wash stations, and a parking area. And a multi-agency grant application effort for Meadowbrook Prairie Loop Trail. This was in partnership with the City of North Bend, City of Snoqualmie, and Skyview Metro Parks. A little bit more about this specific project. While this highly competitive WWRP, the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program grant, wasn't awarded for this project, there is a new opportunity with the Land and Water Conservation Grant coming up in 2021. The Park Commission has recommended that the council authorize submitting for this grant with the same project scope, with the same partners, and retaining the city's 2020 share of the King County Parks Levy allocation as a project match. Now, looking ahead to 2021, we are ready as a commission and very, very enthusiastic to support the city's efforts in improving North Bend parks. We have tentative projects on our work plan. Some of these are COVID or pandemic dependent. We plan to provide stakeholder input for the Skyview Metro Parks Recreation Program Plan. With the lead of our new Arts Advisory member, look forward to helping coordinate a city beautification project proposal that would include a mural at the wastewater treatment plant clarifier. Look forward to plan for and making a recommendation to council for future use of available park funding for projects that are on the city's park capital improvements plan. We hope to be able to coordinate the annual park tour this year and make a recommendation for use of park maintenance funding. And we will be reviewing and making a recommendation on a trail plan for the trail from Tollgate Farm to downtown that will be located along North Bend Way. Again, pandemic permitting, we hope to coordinate with Skyview for some community celebrations for recently completed projects that include the Tollgate Farmhouse interior remodel and very soon to be concluded Torgerson Skate Park. And if the environment permits here with the COVID in the background, we would also like to coordinate a community engagement event such as a booth at the North Bend Block Party sometime this summer. We will be reviewing and commenting on some Skyview coordinated projects, including the Tenant Trailhead Park Trail Plan, and also participating in the public planning process for improvements at William Henry Taylor Park. We very much look forward to coordinating and participating in Arbor Day activities later this fall and reviewing any new subdivision recreation space plans as they come in. On behalf of our Parks Commission, I would really like to thank the council's support and for your consideration of the commission's recommendations and ongoing efforts. We're working together to really enhance the city's park and recreation resources. Finally, I'd like to invite you for any comments and feedback that I could share back to our commission and or if you have any questions at this time.
Chair Rudd, thank you very much for that report, and to you and all of the commissioners for the great work that you're doing there. That's a very ambitious plan. We appreciate your direct engagement to make our city better. I'm sure council have some questions or comments. I see Mr. Garcia.
So I'd like just to say thank you, guys. I feel like our parks have gotten exponentially better over the last few years. And I'm sure that's also in conjunction with the Parks District and having an entity that solely focuses on just that. One thing I would like to see, which I've never been opposed to, but never really understood the need for until this last summer, I caved in and bought my kid a puppy. And now I find myself driving all over the place to find off-leash dog parks that, let's say, are clean. There's one nearby that's often full of mud. But any thought given to an off-leash dog park in North Bend area?
That's an excellent suggestion as we ongoing plans for future parks. Thank you for that.
Anyone else?
I want to pin her down on an answer. When can I want that thing in next year.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
We work on that. This was a tentative work plan, so there is time to make additions.
Perfect.
Who else? Mr. Laudenbach.
Mina, thank you very much for everything you and everybody on the Parks Commission does. You do an excellent job. You guys are helping shape North Bend into something that we can all be proud of with our park system. And I'll never forget the times that I would see you lapping me at the track as you ran by me. I think you're the one that convinced me to start walking instead of running because you always left me in the dirt. But thanks for everything that you do. And I look forward to hopefully being able to enjoy a farmer's market this upcoming year. So take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Colon.
Yes, thank you, Mina. You guys do a wonderful job. Our parks are amazing. And to add to Chris's request, what if we had fresh fruits, vegetables, and flowers at Tollgate on a Saturday or a Sunday? That would be amazing. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a wonderful thought, and I hope it fits well in the agricultural improvements plan for Tollgate.
Ms. Miller.
Hi, Mina. Thank you for all you do and all the other commissioners. I love our park system. It's only getting better and better in my eyes. I walk most of the trails daily, and on Tollgate, I've got an old dog now. So one of my thoughts is we only have a few receptacles to put those important little packages in. I'm hoping that in the future we will potentially have more of those out there.
Thank you.
Thought.
Another great suggestion. Thank you. Noted.
But great job all the way around.
Thank you.
Good. Anyone else? Not seeing another hand. Nina, any final thoughts you want to share with us?
Just thank you once again. This is really teamwork makes dream work. Our community as we continue to grow. And we really, as a commission, we really appreciate this opportunity. And I am not exaggerating when I say we're enthusiastic about the work that we get to support. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us tonight. Next item on our agenda is another presentation, police services update. While the agenda says Police Chief Phipps, I believe we have Captain Almquist with us. Nick, you want to unmute and put yourself on video and talk to us, please.
Absolutely. I tried to put my video on, but it says that I can't.
You should be able to now.
Okay. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Which is okay, you don't have to see my face.
I just requested you again, and
there we go.
There you are.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening, council, and it is my honor to present to you the annual report for 2020. And I know that Dawn is going to assist me in putting up a presentation, or you're just going to have it in front of you. I'm not sure how that works.
nope. You should be able to share it now.
So Nick, she's saying you can share it.
Oh, well, actually, the email that I had prior with you, Dawn, weren't you going to share it for me? What, Earl?
Your practice session didn't go well, Nick.
It didn't.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it here.
I will be brief because I know there's a big agenda. So I just wanted to let Councilman Rosen know that I was disappointed that you weren't my captain this week. Last week when I was in Florida, I was looking for you.
I apologize, it's not letting me open it, so let me try it a different way here.
Do you want me to fill the void with a catchy show, Tim?
Nick, I would suggest if we can't figure this out in a few seconds, or that Dawn could catch up with you if she can get it up and running. I'm sure you're showing slides with some data points on it, but I'd say let's go.
Okay,
Tell us.
sounds good. I'll just continue and maybe Dawn might catch up when she gets it. And I know some of you may or may not have this packet, but we currently have, as far as staffing goes, you know, there's Chief Phipps and myself, plus we currently have 3 sergeant positions. We have 4 allocated, but Sergeant Keaton retired in June. So we currently have 3 active sergeants. And of course you pay for 2 of those sergeants. I wish you could see the photo of all of your North Bend officers, but they're very seasoned. They're very dedicated and they've done a fantastic job, as you have seen in the community and heard from your community as well. As far as your operational support staff, those are the folks that are our detectives, Jason Weiss, Scott Bruton, as well as SRO Kim Stonebreaker and PSO Larry Warren that you supplement 50% of his salary for. And then records technician Melinda Black, who you pay for. As far as calls for service go this year, they have gone down. And I think that we all can understand the reasons why, due to COVID, and with COVID restraints and all, we've put a general order out there that we want officers to be less proactive, meaning less traffic stops that aren't completely at a community sensitive risk. So the traffic stop numbers are self-initiated are much lower than last year, not completely lower. But in 2020, you had North Bend.
There you go, Nick. You're up and running now.
Awesome. So I think we're on calls for service. Am I running this, Dawn? Or you are? Okay.
She'll go with you.
Calls for service. As you
There
can
you
see,
go.
that calls for service have gone down. Self-initiated has gone down. We have kept a very good number when it comes to the priority of call response. Those have maintained very well. And you can just see the differences there between Snoqualmie and North Bend as far as the numbers go in relation to both cities. Next one. your statistics, you can see from the 2 years, they have also gone down. There's only been a couple of areas where they have increased. One of those is trespassing. I think with COVID and everything going on, I believe that there's always been a lot more of some of this type of activity going on, whether it be thefts or just the homeless and people that are just basically down on their luck. So DUI collisions have gone up. I don't want to say that there's been more consumption of alcohol, but the DUIs have certainly gone up in the sense of where the stats were from last year. But all in all, numbers are down, but they're all in good standing. Next one. And you could probably skip over that, just a graph. This next one, you can see that they've increased quite a bit. We can say that's an election year. And with the amount of pistol transfers and concealed weapons permits, they have been steady. And especially with the transfers there, we take on a lot of those a week. And so that puts a lot of pressure on our support staff. And these, again, are just numbers for North Bend. And so they're that or more in Snoqualmie. The prisoner transports, as you can see, have gone down because of the jail restraints of only being allowed for DUI or DV or some serious felonies. So our transports in general have gone down. Next. Some significant cases that have occurred. I can't talk a lot about the homicide that did occur because it still is an active investigation. This was out at the Edgewick Inn, and it had to do with an overdose that is, like I said, still under investigation, and a very sad scenario. As far as the Major Crimes Task Force, this is a coalition resource, and both of our detectives are on the Major Crimes Task Force. So whenever there is a detective call out that is required, we utilize Major Crimes to handle that case investigation. Our police canine, you can see there, that's Pooch and Canine Officer John Fishbeck. They have done a phenomenal job in their first year. John's been recognized both regionally and locally in the state as a doing very well with drug detection. Canine Pooch has really surpassed a lot of the goals that we had anticipated for him this year. Recently, there was a car stop in North Bend where about $60,000 in narcotics was recovered, 2 stolen firearms, and there was a convicted felon that was the driver in a stolen car. There's been just an excessive amount of fentanyl that we've taken off North Bend streets, a lot of liquid fentanyl, and John and Pooch, that team has done just an incredible job. The outlet malls calls for service, as you can see, they've reduced as well, but we like to highlight that just because the mall is a significant driver in calls for service for us. And we spend a lot of time with proactive, visible enforcement there just to reduce the amount of people that are going there to commit thefts. Next. So staffing, we're in a big change. We've got a lot of retirements that have occurred. On this month, on the 24th, we're going to be testing for sergeant. We have held off this promotion from Sergeant Keaton since June. We wanted to have those that were interested in promoting to sergeant have experience in 90-day rotations of taking on a squad and leading it and doing all those leadership first level responsibilities that they may or may not get in this promotion. We also had Officer Rick Carey that was deployed overseas, that he had expressed interest in this promotion. So we also held off because giving him the opportunity to test, and he's home now and we're very glad to have him back. The We have another sergeant that will be retiring in June, Sergeant Graham. And both of those gentlemen have spent over 30 years in their profession, and we're excited for their next journey as well as ours. This will be a culture change for us in the sense where we are going to be promoting younger, but dynamic leaders, and we're excited about what that will look like for us. We also have Hakeem Smith. He's in the police academy now, doing fantastic. He'll be graduating in May. And we currently have one open police officer position. And also PSO Warren, Larry Warren, who's your transport officer that you pay 50% for. He's retiring March 1st. And he was our first PSO 20 years ago at Snoqualmie. And so he has an incredible legacy. So we are testing next Monday actually for his position. And just so you know, North Bend is a fully staffed department. The vacancies that we have on the Snoqualmie side. The impacts of the demonstrations locally, we all felt that this summer in North Bend with the demonstration. We feel like that is was a complete successful event with utilization of numerous outside agencies, even from the east side of the mountains. And even though that was a tense time, we feel like it was a successful event. A lot of partnerships, growth, and change, and lessons learned out of that. As far as COVID, we've had minimal impacts. We've had some, as I've shared with North Bend's leadership, but we've been able to work through those, and we take the precautions very seriously, both inside the station and outside the station. So everyone feels pretty safe in the environment, because we all know what those impacts could be for exposure to a department. Life-saving awards. Currently, we have one that's going to be issued here soon. One of your North Bend officers, Officer Gutwin, assisted King County deputies giving CPR for 5 minutes before aid arrived. And the King County Health Department has deemed that a life-saving scenario because of their efforts in resuscitating him until advanced life support could arrive. That'll be coming soon. Use of force simulator, that is something we're really looking forward to. The Coalition of Small Cities purchased this together, and it's a simulator that takes on a realistic training scenario that allows the officers to use de-escalation techniques and less lethal force options. And we are also going to hopefully invite the city council and mayor to go through the simulator so they can understand some of the things that their officers are going through, and they can just have a better sense of the impacts that can have. So we're excited to have that, and we are getting that, I believe, in next month. The next one. This is just a little snapshot of some of the things that have happened in North Bend. The top left one, just real quickly, that is not Sasquatch in a uniform. That is one of our more taller, muscular officers that is doing what we homeless camp enforcement and checking the areas, and just a couple other dynamic things that happened in the city over the year. Next. All right, I told you this would be fast. Are there any questions for you guys?
Wow, Nick, that's pretty quick for the presentations. Don, would you take down the display at least momentarily so I can see everybody? Right now, I think I saw Mr. Garcia's hand go up. No? Okay. Questions? Comments from council? Mr. Rosen, then Mr. Elwood.
Yeah, as far as comments, as always, Nick, and please as to all your officers, thank you for everything you do, especially this year. It's been a challenging year, I think, for law enforcement throughout the country. I'll speak for myself. I certainly appreciate everything your department has done. If there's anything we can do to help you do your job better, let us know. I think you'll find a great deal of support on this council for your department and everything you guys do. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood.
Yes, I would just like to echo that, but also like hearing that the event in your eyes was successful. Being a participant on the street, I thought it was a successful event as well. So I was really impressed with community involvement and the respect that most citizens gave to everybody else in their space. So I agree. I think that was successful. And I like hearing that there were lessons learned on your side. So I appreciate you talking about that. And I'm also really excited about the use of force simulator. One, to experience it, but two, the fact that you were able to procure one and that you're going to integrate that into your training. I think that's very proactive with the time, and I appreciate the department's thinking on that and going through with that. So thank you and all the officers for all that you do, and I really appreciate your report, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Any other council comment? Ms. Colon and then Ms. Miller.
Nick, thank you for offering us the simulator, because I was going to personally request that I could use it. I think it'll help me in my job as well. And thank you for all that you do, and good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Well, it looks like I'm wait a minute. Did you get me?
Yep.
Looks like I'm following suit. I love the idea of the simulator. I'm so appreciative of each and every one of you, certainly what you do each and every day, that you're out there protecting and looking after us. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Alan.
So I'm just gonna say ditto what everybody said, but actually ask you a question on top of it. One of the things I did notice in that numbers was it seemed like the burglaries went up. Is that true in that number? And is there a reason why we saw an increase in the burglaries?
Let me just look real quick. Burglaries. You know, we had a series of burglaries out at the Cedar Falls storage units,
Okay.
where they had a rash of thefts out there. So that was like multiple ones. So the numbers spiked pretty high in the burglary range. And that was largely due to a large theft. And each one's a case number. So each is a number. So that went up there because of that burglary that occurred out there.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for what you guys do. I ditto on what they said, but that number kind of caught my eye.
Right.
Yep. Mr. Laudenbach.
Hey. Nick, I see your guys almost every morning when I'm out on my walks and stuff like that. And it's always good to see them. They're diligent. They're very outgoing, personable people, and they're doing a great job. And please pass that along, that I certainly appreciate seeing them out there at Dark 30. And sometimes it's hard to, I'm barely awake. I'm amazed they are too, but tell them they do a great job and to keep doing the good work.
Will do.
Any further comments from council?
I just want to say that it is a nostalgic time for me, just in the sense of many of you, some of you may not know, is I spent my summers here in North Bend visiting my mother growing up and down on Maloney Grove. So it's just been an honor to serve North Bend government as well as the citizens, having spent a lot of time growing up here as a boy. So it is an honor to serve all of you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much for that. One thing that I wanted to emphasize that I think you put maybe too little emphasis on was that the officers did experience some difficulties with COVID, both in protection as well as cases, and your organization, top to bottom, rallied and put a lot of work into pitching in to make sure everybody was covered appropriately, both officers as well as the community. And so I think I don't want that downplayed. And exciting about the pending officer award for the life-saving experience. That's always wonderful to hear that gratification. And then finally, I would say, yes, I consider the management of the main protest that occurred this summer a success in that it did not result in damage to property, and that both sides or multiple sides, if it might have been, were able to express themselves safely and overall very, very well managed. And so I noticed that, as several other council members. I was on the street, and that was quite an event for us, and it showed how we act as a community and how our police force can do their job safely and with respect. And so the further work on de-escalation methods, that's wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
Right. So with that, thank you so much. Appreciate that, and everything you do. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, item number 13 is AB 21016, a resolution authorizing a developer extension agreement with Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Rigos.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Good evening, Council. Page 117 in your packets. The subject material of this particular agenda bill is kind of a housekeeping item, but we wanted to highlight the benefits of this particular project because staff believes there are several. It's a win for the community. First off, it's affordable housing. Second, it's infill downtown, where we want to see some density in that area. Third, there's typically a requirement to provide some type of community service for these residents. So the city gets some bang for the buck. These people are out involved in the community. And so that's a great thing for the city. So otherwise, the developer extension really is just about them extending some sewer main, building some sidewalk, and a little bit of storm drainage pipe. So it's a pretty small construction project. So this did go through Transportation and Public Works Committee, and it's recommended for approval. That's it.
Thank you. I'll ask if council has any clarifying questions on this, and then we'll move to public comment. Seeing none, if there's a member of the public that wishes to comment on this particular item, please indicate so in the chat box and or by *9 if you are on the phone. As a reminder, do keep the chat box just for indicating you're looking to speak. Thank you.
Michael Thomas, please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you much. Michael Thomas, 1231 LaForest Drive, SE. No doubt everyone, desires affordable housing, but it is incremental development. And, being an ex-board member of Salal, we had to make tough calls on development. And sometimes when you don't have water, you don't have water. So I question the ads. This is something where you like to do things and it's tough. And this is asserting, a problem that when you need to do development, sometimes you don't have the resources for it. And sometimes you have to say no. And in your plan, you've identified that you have a shortage. And I've asserted this before. There's another problem with concurrency. I'm not certain if this is within the current sewer concurrency envelope. The city has asserted several times that it is in the middle of a sewer moratorium. Everyone knows the sewer plant is totally torn up right now. And, certainly as we think about both the water impact to our rivers for apparent water shortages, what about, sewer impacts as you add even small amounts of development? And sometimes you have to make very tough calls. So a question I have is this also within the envelope of the current sewer plant or not? And that's a very, very big concern. And with that, I'll end my comment and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else?
There is nobody else at this time.
Okay. With that, as I understand, this came through Transportation and Public Works, Chair Loudenback, I believe.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to approve AB 21-016, a resolution authorizing a development extension agreement with Habitat for Humanity, Seattle, King County, for Habitat for Humanity Townhomes.
Motion, I have a second, or did that come from Ms. Colon? Thank you. Mr. Loudenback, you want to speak to this?
I think Mr. Rigos lined it out very well. This is an exciting time in the city of North Bend. We're actually able to partner with an organization like Habitat for Humanity, hopefully the first of several projects coming forward where we can help those in need of affordable housing that are going to be vital members of our community and or are already vital members of our community. So I would recommend it do pass.
Thank you. Ms. Colon, you had the second. Did you want to follow up?
I think it's a great opportunity, a rare opportunity, and we're very lucky that Habitat for Humanity came to us and we had the property to be able to do it. And I look forward to seeing the citizens that are going to get new homes and ones that they will be a part of building, and I hope they love it.
Thank you. Any other council member? Mr. Garcia.
Yes, so I guess I'll answer that question. When we looked at the capacity at the sewer treatment plant, we had a certain percentage left that we reserved for commercial only, not so it didn't all get used up by residential growth. And in that, there was a 1% set aside of that remaining capacity for affordable housing projects. I don't remember the exact number of ERUs, but it was certainly more than this 7. And plus, are there 1 or 2 residents there now that have ERUs that we'd be kind of replacing?
That's correct.
So yes, we do have the water and the sewer for this.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see Ms. Miller.
I'm just very briefly, I'm just happy to see this go through. It'll fit a nice need that we haven't had in this community. It's quite exciting.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one. The motion before you is to approve AB 21-016, a resolution authorizing a developer extension agreement with Habitat for Humanity, Seattle, King County, for the Habitat for Humanity Townhomes. All in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries and it is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Next on our agenda, and what I believe many of you in the audience were here tonight for, so thank you for your patience on that. Item number 14, AB 21-017, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 1728 adopted earlier this year and adopting the December 2020 water system plan. Mr. Rigos.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 171 in your packets. So this water system plan, it's been a journey. City staff have been working on this water system plan for nearly 2 years. Staff from Washington State Department of Ecology, Washington State Department of Health, and King County UTRC have told me they rarely see so much interest in the city's water system plan. So I want to first thank water system plan author Russ Porter from Griffin Osborne and Don DeBerg, our city engineer, for staying with us and spending the additional time and effort to complete this water system plan. So there's a fairly detailed agenda bill in your packet that council you've probably all read through, so I won't regurgitate that. But I will tell you 10 reasons why I recommend this water system plan should be approved. Some of these ideas you're probably very aware of, and maybe it opens some eyes here. So I'll just run right through it. Number 10, North Bend City Council already approved the water system plan back on August 4th, 2020. Essentially, there have only been 3 changes to the water system plan since then. This includes adding the National Guard site of 398 ERUs. This was in response to Salau running out of water for a very large project. Second, modifying the plan from a 10-year plan to a 5-year plan. And thirdly, defining reasonable and timely service for people that don't have water. So we've made it clear that if you're within 200 feet of the city water system and you want, and you have, or proposing 1 home, then you have to connect. And if you're 400 feet or less for 2 ERUs, then you need to connect. And that was in response to the Tulalip tribe's concerns about the proliferation of exempt wells in the upper valley. So all things being equal, the tribes and Department of Ecology actually want to see more people connect to the city's water system because it decreases the amount of wells. So that's number 10. Number 9, the water system plan has been prepared in conformance with Washington State Department of Health criteria as required by WAC 246-290-100. The author, Russ Porter, has prepared approximately 50 water system plans for approval. Number 8, the water system plan is a planning level document. It is a forward-looking plan. It is not a plan of yesterday. It is not a construction plan of the moment. As such, it's possible that all the projects in the water system plan will be built, and it's possible that none will be built. This is not a construction project we are approving. The water system plan is basically a guide for staff and council and the community. 7, there have been at least 8 or 9 public meetings on the water system plan during the past 10 months. We have heard from the public and the community. There has been a huge effort on public outreach as part of this plan. 6th reason, King County Utility Technical Review Committee, full of engineers, planners, and scientists, has approved it, made the recommendation to King County Council, which subsequently approved it. Washington State Department of Ecology has approved it, and State Department of Health has approved it preliminarily. They're just waiting for North Bend's City Council's final approval on this, since we added the National Guard and changed it from a 10-year plan to a 5-year plan. 5th reason, the water system plan allows the National Guard to come to North Bend. Without a water system plan approval, then the National Guard will not come to North Bend. There is a conditional certificate of water availability to the National Guard that a second mitigation source must be online before they connect. Our water system plan allows them to come here. No vote tonight would be a vote against the National Guard. 4th reason, it allows missing middle housing to be built on the Dahlgren site. City Council has long advocated for more housing options at lower price points, and these smaller units will provide competition for some of the older housing stock in the city to keep those prices from increasing as quickly, those rental prices. The only multifamily housing project built here in the last several decades was the John Day apartment complex of approximately 35 units built on Orchard Avenue last year. We just have a shortage of missing middle housing. 3rd, city is eligible for grants, large sums of money for water projects if the city has an approved water system plan. The city's 2011 water system plan has now expired. Grants are nice because these funds are other people's money to help build city infrastructure, of which we have been applying quite a bit for grants and been fairly successful over the last several years. 2, this water system plan is in front of you is only good for 5 years, and then it must be subsequently updated. We will be back here again in less than 5 years to see the strides made on mitigation and DSL. And the number 1 reason is there is nothing to gain by not approving it tonight, but you potentially lose a lot. My strong recommendation is that you approve this water system plan tonight. Happy to answer any questions from council or the mayor or otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Before we move to public comment and then into an introduction and discussion among council, I did want to see if council had any preliminary clarifications that they wanted from staff before moving forward. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, Mr. Rigos, the thing that resonates with me, and I want to be 100% sure on this. The National Guard Development Agreement, if approved, because that's the other thing, we haven't approved it yet. We haven't even seen it. Would clearly state that if we don't have a second mitigation source, a backup, and that's the key here, right? It's not a second mitigation source, it's a backup. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's basically we need the mitigation water equivalent of Cascade, which is about 3 acre-feet per month, 36 acre-feet per year. We need Cascade online, or we need a second mitigation source, correct?
Okay, so if, let's say that we lose Cascade well, that the science of that proves to not work, and that's clearly been argued, that's in dispute, and I'll buy that. It hasn't been approved yet. So if we don't have that, and we don't have another mitigation source that has been approved by the tribe, both tribes, Department of Ecology and Department of Health, because all those people would have to buy off on this mitigation, is that correct?
Well, our approval body is Department of Ecology for mitigation sources, but Department of Ecology does want to hear from Tulalip tribe and Snoqualmie tribes, no doubt. And so we talk to them. And so they will be influenced by the tribes, but the Snoqualmie tribe does not approve our mitigation system. It's Department of Ecology.
That being said, they're not going to approve it if there's strong viable objections by the tribe. I think that
less likely to approve.
Less likely to approve. So if that doesn't happen, then this National Guard doesn't happen until that gets fixed. Is that correct?
Until we get a second mitigation source, of which there are many potential options.
Yes, but if we don't have one online, they don't hook up to our water system until we do.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So what we are approving here today is a plan that also includes, because I mean, it's been pointed out that we have had huge leakage issues over the past. I do appreciate the work that we've done, and last year council stressed that this leakage system is a priority. If memory serves me, we've committed to spending $600,000 a year on fixing leakage and meters. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have, that's in the water system plan actually that we're approving tonight. It's a 10-year plan to bring our DSL down underneath 10%. It's about $10 million of various projects, including new water meters and also replacing a lot of asbestos concrete water main that's past its useful life with longer useful life ductile iron pipes. So yeah, we want to spend that money. We want to fix this infrastructure, you bet.
Okay, so really, by approving this plan, what we're not approving is new development. What we're approving is a plan that lays out the course of how we're going to fix our issues and provide water to our citizens.
Correct.
And we still don't have sewer until the sewer treatment plants upgrades are done.
Yeah, we're effectively in a moratorium in the city right now between the wastewater treatment plant that doesn't have capacity for large projects. Now, we did a set aside for commercial of about 9%. And we also have a second moratorium essentially within city limits of Salal that they can't serve a lot of the development on North Bend Way and up at the National Guard site. So there's already kind of two moratoriums happening. And then we've got this mitigation water issue as well, so that we're working through the complexities of design and engineering and analysis with all the stakeholders right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. You yielded floor. Nick, any other clarifying questions? Ms. Miller?
Mark, hi there. I'm going to speak into permits. Is that at all happening? And if so, how much during this situation that we're in?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of it was cutting out.
Permitting. I'm asking, been asked by quite a few people in the area if we will be allowing a lot of permits during this segment of our time, and what would that look like if we do?
Yeah, so well, there's a pipeline of vested projects already that we've issued certificates of concurrency for water and sewer. So that would include, the Dahlgren project, the River Run project in Salal. So there's 118 multifamily units there. Dahlgren's 212 units, both off exit 32. So those are already vested. Those are legally obligated projects to move forward. But what may happen here after those projects get built is there may be actually a pretty significant slowdown of residential until we get these mitigation projects executed. So yeah, I think it's going to slow down after those projects.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I just wanted some added clarity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Colon.
My question, Mark, is what is the timeline that you expect to have a second mitigation source? And if it happens to be the Cascade well, is that likely to be approved by the Department of Ecology and the DOH? And also, will we need to get a chiller and for the water? And how does that work?
So it depends. I think we can get Cascade well approved and operational in 2021 or 2022. There's some concern about the Cascade Pond in terms of the water being 5 to 10 degrees warmer than the river. So it's an option for the city of North Bend to for us to put essentially ice machines out there, a chiller facility where all the water from the pond flows through and it's cooled down to the river temperature. Of course, that will cost $250,000 to $1 million to $500,000, and then we have to operate that facility. So those costs are not free; they're borne by North Bend Water customers, and I'm always cognizant of when those costs are coming our way. Now the Cascade well by itself, the temperature difference of the well and the river is very small. So if we just wanted to move forward with the Cascade well, then I don't think we need to put a chiller in or ice machines or what have you out there. Other mitigation projects that we're looking at is a mitigation reservoir, one that's very large, could be on the order of about 10 million gallons. Very expensive, about $15 million, but it buys us about 30 mitigation days per year. In 2020, I think we had about 70 mitigation days. Normally we average about 90 to 100 mitigation days. That's a very expensive project. So we're also looking at doing a 1.5 million gallon mitigation reservoir on the Middle Fork River. So that buys us about 5 days of mitigation, and then Cascade buys us 5 days of mitigation. Hobo Springs is 99.99%. The water is there. It's just in 2015 that we had that drought that was preceded by a low snowpack summer. Plus, Seattle Public Utilities was doing a capital construction project on their water intake and didn't notify the city. Since that time, we've installed a gauge up there, so we have a better handle on when those flows might get lower. So anyways, I kind of went off on a tangent on your question maybe, but I think in the next couple of years, 2 years or so, we could have as many as 2 mitigation projects constructed.
And I think, again, if I could just insert there again, those are items spoken to in this plan, not approved by this plan. They're options, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Elwood. You're muted still. You're muted.
You would think by now I would know to unmute myself. but I have a series of questions. I'll probably reserve most of them for the next session, but up front, I just would like to get some clarification around a couple points. One point you mentioned with the chiller, approving this plan opens up the door for us to acquire grant monies and additional funding resources. So I'd like to expect that, and I don't know if you've thought it through yet, which is fine, but that is a step forward to helping us finance something like a chiller to offset the cost to the citizens of North Bend is one assumption, perhaps question.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the extension to National Guard is a $8 million water line. We may get some help from the state. We may get some help from Puget Western. We may get some help through a grant, and I need this water system plan approved to get help via grant. So
cool. And then just to be clear, does approving this plan help or hinder our pursuit of more mitigation water?
it helps. Our previous water system plan is expired, and it's dated 2010 or 11, and it did not really have mitigation options in there. It just talked about Salal as a possibility, Salal well as a second mitigation option, or the Tolt pipeline as a mitigation option. I'm pretty certain it didn't speak to any of these specific projects like Cascade or Hobo Springs bypass or et cetera. So it helps.
Okay. And just to be clear, we've satisfied the Department of Ecology is the authority on determining our water supply and all that we do with our water rights.
So Department of Ecology is in charge of monitoring and regulating our water rights. Department of Health, they're both state agencies, is responsible for our water system plan final approval.
And thus far, the Department of Ecology is aligned. We are aligned with them. They are aligned with us, and we've satisfied their concerns. Thing one. Thing two is Department of Health has already had a preview of everything that's in motion, and at the moment, they seem to be aligned with where we're going and are likely to approve our plan once we approve it. They're essentially waiting for us to approve it tonight.
Yeah, that's all correct. Our water system plan is, the Department of Ecology blesses it. They may have some concerns on specific mitigation projects in their components of those mitigation projects, but those get worked out later. Yeah, you're right.
And then, even though King County is another agency that we have to go through, would you say that they carefully reviewed the plan before they approved it?
Yeah, so there's a group at King County called the Utilities Technical Review Committee, 7 members that report up to King County Council, and they're comprised of engineers, planners, and scientists. And there was 3 public hearings on our water system plan, and they had separate meetings outside of those public hearings where they felt confident moving our water system plan forward to King County Council, which subsequently was approved.
And so for those in the audience who may not be privy to that, when it first came across the King County Council, they listened to some concerns from the public and from the tribe, and they decided to table the decision of it so they could process that information more. And then when they came back to the table a week later, they approved it by a supermajority.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have for this, all the questions I have for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move to public comment? Did I see your hand, Mr. Laudenbach? I wasn't sure.
No, Your Honor, I anxiously await public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Not seeing any other, so I believe Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Rigos, I'm just going to be blunt. The Friends of the Snoqualmie River and Trail have stated that they have evidence, and I'm not disputing that. I haven't personally seen it, that says there's some flaws in our plan. Have you been presented this evidence?
no document is perfect, right? So whether it's an engineering plan or a water system plan, nothing's perfect. There could be a typo in there. There could be, a number off. It's 1,000 pages, so it's a very large document. So I'm not aware of anything significant that concerns me in our water system plan.
And okay, so you haven't seen anything from them. You haven't seen any documentation from them of specific errors outside of maybe decimal points that we should have our experts look at to say is this viable or not?
No, I haven't seen evidence of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elwood.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for priming another line of question for me, Chris. Yes, the Friends of Squamish have put out there that the city has falsely claimed things in previous reports, and I don't want to relitigate the past, but is there anything following up on Mr. Garcia's document, anything in the document that you feel is false that has been published to the citizens or to us?
Well, I heard yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to look, that a 2015 mitigation report, and we use Golder Associates to prepare those reports every year, and they're reviewed by myself and Don DeBerg, but apparently there was a notation that said the city of North Bend and Salal, there's a contract between the two. I didn't verify that, but anybody that's working within our water or various organizations of Salal and North Bend both know there's no contract. So it might have just been a typo that was brought to my attention very recently.
Okay, thank you. And then the kind of peripheral to all this, when thinking about the water conservation ordinance, which we passed, which the city put forward as another good faith gesture to demonstrate to the community that they want to be good water stewards. And we passed that, the council passed that. Have you heard opposition about water conservation ordinance, essentially from the same community of people that are accusing the city of not being good stewards of water?
Yeah, I've heard opposition on the water conservation ordinance. We're one of the few purveyors in the state of Washington that has something like we do. Part of the reason is Snoqualmie River is wild and scenic compared to many rivers in the state of Washington. It's not dammed up like the Cedar River or Tolt or Skagit or some of the other rivers up in the headwaters. So they've been concerned about the water conservation ordinance. But there's a lot of people that are in support of the water conservation ordinance too. So I hear it both sides.
Well, that's good, because the next question for that is, when thinking about the water conservation ordinance, how many citizens were warned and then subsequently fined as a result of over usage of water? And it's okay if you don't have the data compiled, but it'd be interesting to know how many were warned and then fined.
So to my knowledge, 0 residents, water customers, or Salal customers within city limits were warned to use less water via verbally or in writing. And it was really neat to see that quarter number 3, which comprises September, August, and July, when we started the water conservation ordinance, we were actually producing less water at our 2 water sources, Mount Si Springs and Centennial Well. So that told myself and the city engineer that, hey, people are aware that let's not waste water everywhere, keep the sprinklers running all day when it's not necessary. And people were conserving water a little bit overall for the aggregate. So that was good to see. And 0 warnings, 0 fines. We don't intend to be big brother or a bully here. That's not our intention.
Well, thank you for that, because I know I was getting peppered with comments that it was draconian and so forth. And I knew the city's intent at that time was to make it more of an educational awareness effort. And therefore I didn't deem it or see it as draconian. So it's good to hear that the results of that came out the way they did. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mr. Elwood, any other questions for staff? Ms. Cullen.
Just one more on our DSL. What is your next project? Where is it at? And how long will it take?
Great question. So we were at 24% DSL. We're down to 16% DSL. Right now we're in design for a water main AC replacement in the Silver Creek neighborhood on 6th Street. I think it's about 2,000 feet of water main pipe. So that's in survey and design. We might have time to construct that this year. It's either this year or next year. And so that should drop our DSL, I would suspect, about 1% more, because we think there's some leaks happening out there with that 60, 70-year-old asbestos concrete pipe. The other thing we're working on actively is the water meters, replacing those out. So our water group within our maintenance division of Public Works Department has removed and replaced a couple hundred water meters in the past year or two, and they're planning on doing a couple hundred more this year. And then we're getting really aggressive in 2022 and 2023. We're hoping to increase the budget there to buy a lot of new water meters, because many of those are past their useful life. Water meters will work their useful life about 12 years, 12, 15 years or so. And just many of the water meters are 25 years old. So we're not losing water in the ground. We're losing revenue, actually, is what's happening. But that's part of the DSL equation. So that should, we do all those water meters. We should get down towards that 12, 11, 13% area. And then we've got some other large water main replacements on the horizon out near our Mount Si Springs, just some really old pipes. We've got one that goes underneath Snoqualmie River. So that's going to be quite a project for us that we need to do.
Mark, with the large number of guests tonight who may not have been tracking this for the past year, like all of us have, would you just define DSL so they understand what that term means?
Yeah, it means distribution system leakage. So it means that we're creating water or producing water at two sources. And our two sources in the city one is Centennial Well, and the other is Mount Si Springs. We know how much water we take from those two sources over the course of a year. And then we compare that to all of the summary, the addition of every water charge, every water customer, and see what that difference is. And so some of the loss could be pipes that are leaking underground that you don't see bubbling up at the surface. Some of them could be water meters that are old or outdated. Some of it could be fire hydrant pulls from firemen that we aren't aware that we're losing water in the system. So there's 6 or 7 type sources that we can lose water from and not know it. But yeah, we want to get to that 10%.
Thank you. Council.
Well, I have additional questions, but maybe.
You want to wait for later? Okay.
Yeah, because there aren't really clarifications on the plan itself, so.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will be moving to public comment at this time. I'll remind everyone on the call that the chat box is strictly for indicating if you're looking to speak on the item. We need to monitor that very carefully. Dawn?
Thank you. And also a reminder to please state your name and address for the record at the beginning of your comments. Marcus Morissette, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. We spoke earlier at the town hall. I'm going to reiterate some of those points. We've heard a lot about how sound the plan is and how much of an expert.
Sorry, Mr. Morissette, I'll save your time here, but at council, we do need you to address as well as your name.
Marcus Morissette, 12629 468th Avenue Southeast, North Bend, Washington.
Thank you.
So we've heard a lot about how all of the experts that have weighed in on the plan, the King County approval, Mr. Bellwood was very good in sort of a direct examination there, getting a lot of points out. He's to be commended. But the point is the mitigation. The flaws in the plan are the mays, shoulds, and mights in Mr. Rigos's plan. None of that mitigation is set. Cascade Well has numerous problems and may never get approved. And the other mitigation strategies are, just as he said, maze, $15 million projects. It's basically a bunch of fairy tales. The city has had 10 years to get these mitigation sources in place. The mitigation requirements come from their water right approved by the Department of Ecology. So whether we pass this WSP or not has nothing to do with getting the city needing to meet its requirements to put these mitigation sources in place. All the WSP does is allow you to build the Dahlgren property, and the River Run property, and the National Guard housing facility, adding significant demand at the expense of our water and our citizens. The city's own strategy is to rely heavily on the water conservation ordinance. And Mr. Bellwood, that's the problem that people have. They will be told, current residents will be told, they have to limit their use of water to support this new development. And the only reason the city is legally obligated, as Mr. Rigo says, to the Dahlgren property and to the River Run, because they agreed to let planning go forward. Had they never approved that, they wouldn't be legally obligated. And Mr. Rigos also likes to attack Salal and make that his diffusion strategy, that it's all Salal's problem, and all of the city, we're just trying to clean up Salal's problem. And it's not. The city doesn't have the water to support the development that they're trying to push, plain and simple. This plan kicks the can down the road, gives the city 5 years to build the pipeline, to take irrevocable steps towards increased consumption without providing for adequate mitigation. The city should get its mitigation in place, as they're legally required to do, before they expand demand and development in the city. So Mr. Rigos, I would like you to address that, your mays and ifs in your mitigation strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Michael Thomas, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Sure. Michael Thomas, 1231 LaForest Drive, SE, North Bend. Thanks for the excellent line of questioning from council. I remain very concerned about really the margin left in this plan being sort of engineering minded. There's really not much room for error. And even in Mr. Garcia's line of questioning, where Mr. Rigos responded, he's responding that the National Guard facility requires 3 acre-feet. That's actually above the monthly allocation in dry season for the Centennial Well. So you need the pond. The pond, you know, as we hear, is too hot. The pond also is going to require ecology and other approvals to actually modify both the Cascade and Centennial water rights. Going back though to the slim margin, not only, you know, are we dealing with, you know, the city expanding its water service area for the Armory or National Guard and the mule pasture, it's also to cover for all the development from 2015 on. The mitigation study that includes Cascade and Hobo Springs was only based on 2015 and also a larger pond of 7 acre-feet, which is now by GNO study 6 acre-feet. These tiny little numbers matter. They're very important because you're allowed to commit a plan to expand your area that is highly questionable. I would question whether or not you have the capacity to expand your service area simply just based on Chris Garcia's line of questioning. New information has come in as of 12/23 from GNO that indicates the tiny amount of water left in the worst case, and really not substantial differences in the expected case. I didn't get my question answered earlier today at the town hall. And this line of questioning is on the record. And I'm very concerned by that. Some of the other items, Salal hasn't happened. Maybe it will never happen. The other one is Hobo Springs 2. I'm very concerned. Hobo Springs 2 and Hobo Springs itself divert water from Rattlesnake Lake. We all know that Rattlesnake Lake shrinks to about 40 acres, and the city is going to need 3 times the water it took in the past. So as you talk about other projects like Hobo Springs 2 and even the existing mitigation source of Hobo Springs, which is not guaranteed by SPU or 4th or 5th in line in the contract, and Seattle also identifies items that may make Hobo Springs water availability worse, increasing the height of the flashboards that separate Chester Moors from Masonry Pool. This is envisioned in Seattle Water System Plan 2019. I'm very concerned.
Mr. Tosh, you'll need to summarize.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really ask the council to not approve tonight, to defer action, and to allow for more analysis, even for information that comes in, even from ecology as late as 11/11, and even on this very call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kevin Brewster, please unmute yourself and you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Brewster. I'm at 428 Orchard Ave Northeast, North Bend. I'd like to take us back to this summer. There was a little commentary there on that we didn't enforce any rules. No one was fined. You know, as a community member, I never felt like it was optional for me to, you know, comply with those rules. I felt very threatened by fines. I had a neighbor even kind of stick her nose over the fence and comment that I was watering out of the, you know, the time zone and there'd be a big fine. So as a citizen, never were we under the impression that that was sort of this nice thing to do for the community and save water. That felt very, you know, like an enforced action. And, you know, it was crazy to me that we live in such a rainy area and I'm having to, you know, limit my watering. And furthermore, as I see all this development, all I can think about is I'm going to have more and more days of limiting my watering. I think this plan is very rushed. It feels like you're rushing it so you can get this development done. I've heard concerns from the River Coalition that Mr. Garcia mentioned. I saw a few posts from them. That seems like evidence that needs to be taken into account. And it feels like these mitigation strategies are like a wing and a prayer, and they're not real things. And we're putting the cart before the horse. We should prove these out. We should get one built, and we should not do any development until that's done, because we're basing everything on a plan that might not ever come together, and that all of us citizens are going to be stuck with, you know, all of the water you've basically given to more development that never should have been done if we never got those sources. So I feel like this plan is not well thought through. You need some mitigation plans in place. I've managed many projects. In my career as a software manager, I would never put this kind of plan together that has these, like, I hope this technology works. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I can buy this really expensive chiller that costs me probably $200,000 to run a year. Yeah, that could work. Let me make that my plan. I think we need like a real plan that's really going to work for a community, not this pipe dream. Sorry for the pun. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would urge you all to vote no on this and come back with a plan that is really going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brewster.
The Orca Conservancy, please unmute yourself and you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to make comment. We did send a 6-page letter to the council. My name is Sherry Tarantino, and I'm the executive director of Orca Conservancy, which is headquartered out of Seattle, Washington, PO Box 16628, Seattle 98116. Tonight, my comment is regarding our opposition to the current North Bend Water System Plan. Our concerns are not only on what this plan will do to the Snoqualmie River, but what it will do to the entire Snohomish watershed as well. The South Fork Snoqualmie River that flows through North Bend is listed on Ecology's 303D list as an impaired river and has been there since 2006. And currently, it has 2 populations of threatened Chinook salmon that are dependent on cool flowing water for their survival. Both salmon populations are below 10% of their estimated historic population levels. So why are these aforementioned salmon populations worth protecting, you may ask? Well, Orca Conservancy's primary role is to be the critically endangered southern resident killer whale's voice. And healthy salmon populations are what is needed to feed southern resident killer whales and keep them on the path to recovery instead of extinction. As of today, this distinct population segment is down to 74 members total. Therefore, all of you here tonight have a moral obligation to protect Washington's fragile ecosystems, even if doing so requires some economic growth to be sacrificed. Orca Conservancy's opposition to the North Bend Water System Plan is not just about water rights, but more about our concern for the salmon stocks in the Snoqualmie River, which in turn will feed the critically endangered southern resident killer whale population. The council here is in a wonderful position to not only vote no for the recovery of salmon and southern resident killer whales, but more importantly, your vote tonight will go towards our children's right to grow and develop under favorable conditions, which include being able to live in a healthy environment. Please keep that in mind as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Buckner, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you so much to the Orca Conservancy. We share in your concern for the orca.
Jean, remember, please start full name and address.
I'm so sorry. Jean Buckner, 46226 Southeast 139th Place, North Bend. So I'll just pick up. And so we so much appreciate your concern for the orca and our salmon, which feed your orca, and it's all one system and we're all interconnected. And I so appreciate your making that point. To some of the more practical questions, as Marcus pointed out, there are no workable mitigation strategies. The Cascade Golf Course is truly just a pipe dream. And chillers, what's the carbon footprint of those? How much heat is that going to introduce? What is the cost of those? That is just so beyond the pale. Secondly, Mark, you talked about DOE being signed off on this. Well, I know Kelly Gillingham is on this call. And then you sort of back that up. Well, DOE has these issues or that issues, but they're signed off, question mark? Are they signed off or are they not? Regarding the water conservation ordinance, or some of us call the water transfer ordinance, because it essentially takes water from existing citizens and provides it to developments like Dahlgren, etc., or the mule pasture, and we lose and they win. So it's really a taking of water in many folks' opinions. Also, if this plan goes through, you guys would move very swiftly to approve that development. And I would point out that there's no legal obligation to do so. You gave them conditional water certificates. They were never real water certificates. That was our issue with the very first hearing that we jointly had, that they do not have true water certificates. And we were told by that hearing examiner, come back when they approve final, and let's readdress these issues. And we very well may do that. Also, Bellevue and Issaquah don't have anything like this severe water restriction. Our understanding is that 45% of the years moving forward, and that's based on old conservative data, which we are always conservative, would have to impose a phase 2 on the water conservation plan. And 65, oh, I think I got that wrong. 65% of the years would have to have a phase 2, and 45% would have to have a phase 3 water restriction. And that's just untenable in a location where folks want to be able to water their gardens or their—
Sorry, you'll need to summarize, Ms. Buckner. You're over.
Well, thank you, sir. So the last point is that, speaking of keeping things green, the National Department of Resources, the Washington State of Natural Resources, says keep your yards low, lean, and green. And how can we do that if we don't have water in this
Ms. Buckner.
area? Thank you, sir.
Kenneth Nero, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
remember, Kenneth, please start name and address.
I don't see him in the meeting.
I saw
right
you.
now.
Yeah, I saw him earlier. He may have dropped.
He might have. So Matthew Tomsinski, please unmute yourself and you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Matthew Tomsinski, 424 Taylor Place Northeast, North Bend. I just want to echo the concerns that have been raised about the lack of the plan addressing mitigations. And I'm having a hard time reconciling how, if there are viable mitigations or promising mitigations, why this plan wouldn't be taking those into account, or why those mitigations wouldn't have already been implemented well before now. And in light of that, I would advise and request that the city council members vote against this plan until it actually addresses mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Kruger, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Still with us, Mr. Kruger? Let's move on. We can come back to him if he comes back.
Yeah, he is on the call, but I know he's been, I think, having some technical difficulties. So we will move to Lucinda Hauser. Please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, Lucinda Hauser, 48656 Southeast Mount Si Road. I want to address Mr. Rigos's #1 reason to approve the WSP. And what worries me, what he said was there was nothing to gain but a lot to lose if this is not approved. And I guess I would counter that with pretty much the opposite. I think what we have to gain by having you not vote for this is a confirmation that we really, truly will have enough future water, that mitigation will have already been done, that the leaks will have already been fixed before further development happens at the pace that it's happening right now. We have peace of mind, and most importantly, we are protecting our environment, our fish, not just for ourselves, but we're protecting wildlife and our fish. What we have to is the revenue of the short-term revenue increase that approving this would allow. And I would say that our environment, our wildlife, and our confirmed water availability in the future is a much better bet for the citizens of this valley. That's it.
Thank you.
Beth Mouch, hopefully I pronounced that right. Please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Beth again. Larry Stockton. Still couldn't get my computer to get into your meeting. Wanted to say first.
Larry, would you please start with your address, please? Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Lawrence Stockton, 900 Northeast 8th Street in North Bend, Silver Creek. Just wanted to confirm that the written testimony I provided did make it to council, submitted about 4:40 this evening, because it does document a lot of what I've said earlier in the water meeting. But I wanted to get right to the point, which has really been made well by the friends who have commented this evening, that if there was an easy solution to mitigation, we would have had it by now. The only sure bet appears to be buy some water from SPU directly out of their reservoir, as opposed to what leaks through their spring on sometimes. And I'd like to know if that has been explored, and if it hasn't, I think that should be done. The bottom line is we're at the limit of our water supply right now. And if you approve this plan and then supply those projects that have conditional water units, you are exceeding our supply. And while I certainly am excited about the idea of seeing the National Guard out at Trucktown until we get the mitigation water fixed. That's not a good idea. For all the reasons everybody said, we don't want to be short on water. Water is not something you do on a Monte Carlo simulation. Water is something you do with belt and suspenders so you don't run out of water. And with a changing climate, we'd like to see our river and our ecology functioning. So please put this water plan on hold, get an approved mitigation strategy that actually works, and then proceed. We'll all feel much more secure in that event. And 2 more points on your water plan repairs. I think that's great that you're finally getting to the old asbestos concrete water lines in Silver Creek and going out to the Mount Si Spring. That needs to be done for health and safety reasons beyond water conservation. But you also said that by replacing water meters, which needs to be done, obviously, you're going to be replacing revenue, which that means is you aren't going to be gaining any additional water from replacing water meters. You're just going to be gaining revenue, which further reinforces the point that we're at the limit on water supply now.
Need you to summarize, Larry.
Yes, in summary, I would ask you not to approve this water plan and secure a uninterruptible source of mitigation for the full extent of future water connections before you advance those water connections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have Jeff back on the line. So Jeff, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes. Jeff Kruger. You look like you're unmuted, Jeff.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, my apologies. I'm having problems with the connection. Jeff Kruger, 13709 457 Avenue Southeast.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm not going to.
Incoming call.
Are you still with us?
To answer a call, push your.
Jeff? Okay. Well, as again, he seems to be having additional technical difficulties.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having technical difficulties. Still Jeff Kruger. I would just like to say that I think that this is not being rushed through. You guys have spent a lot of time on it, but it is a defective plan that needs to be reworked. I know that Mark and other people would have us believe that this is it and we've got to go forward or we're not going to be able to provide water. That is not the case. It's not true. I really don't harbor any illusions, especially given the questioning and the not questions, but the statements made tonight by Mr. Elwood and some of the other council members. I don't harbor any illusions that you're not going to vote yes tonight and that really our comments don't amount to much. It's sad to me that our city has gotten to this point, and Mayor McFarland, I'd like to address you specifically. It's sad that your comments to the city council regarding your constituents, and I quote, were that do not be fooled by the very minor number of private citizen detractors offering often misleading or false statements and innuendos. The professionals have all weighed in. I can say that Mr. Morissette, Mrs. Buckner, and a number of the others have been very conscientious in working with the city to voice our concerns, and to be disregarded in that manner to the city, to the county council was really appalling to me. And on behalf of the citizens here who have been instrumental in trying to voice our concerns, I think that that's an affront to all of us. And I was embarrassed for you and I was embarrassed for our city when you did that. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger, and I'll address that comment a little later. Do we have anyone else?
There is nobody else, unless there is anyone else on the phone who wishes to speak, and please press *9 if you wish to do so.
Pausing momentarily since we did have a large number of folks on the call tonight. And I was very pleased to see we also had a large turnout for the informational meeting that was at 6 o'clock earlier this evening. So thanks to all of you for attending.
Okay, it appears we do have one more person on the phone. They do not have a name, so please unmute yourself and state your name and address
Phone
for the
ending
record.
0899. Hello? Can unmute on the phone.
Last four digits,
There you are.
0899.
I think I got it. I think I got it. Did
You got it. Yep.
Okay. Ann Bailey, 46313 Southeast 134th Street, North Bend. I wasn't going to speak tonight because I've spoken, this will be my fourth time testifying about this. And I have not had one response. I testified before or gave my 3 minutes initially to the city council. And when it was first being developed, and I got no response from the city, no answers to any of the questions. I testified at UTRC. I testified at the county council meeting, King County Council meeting. I've had no response from the city other than, I'm sorry, Mayor, and I would like to hear what you would say, that you called us a few citizens that are concerned. It's been hours of work and looking at the data and understanding and being concerned. But it seems there isn't a two-way communication, and maybe there could be ways that we could share more and understand more what the situation is, because it's a lot of concerned people. There's a lot of us that are very concerned. So that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you,
How do
Ms.
I
Bailey.
get off of mute? How do I get off?
We'll take care of that for you. Thank you. Okay.
We do not have anybody else.
Right, great. Thank you very much. So with council's indulgence, before I ask for a motion, I'm going to take that rare opportunity that I have to speak, and I want to share a few thoughts, and I want everyone on the call to understand I am talking to all of you, both on the call and everyone who has participated during this process. My comments are not directed at the large number of citizens who have concerns about this water system plan, or for that matter, any of the parts of our future water system endeavors or growth or anything of the like. I do read the comments that are sent in. I do believe my fellow council members read those as well. And our staff does take that input into consideration. But we do have a duty, of course, to respond to the best interest of the whole city, including you. And we feel we've done that. So with that in mind, I want to say to you that the ordinance in front of the council today is a plan, nothing more, nothing less. It is in fact North Bend's plan to ensure the safe delivery of water to our current and future customers, consistent with growth management, not unfair growth, managing growth requirements and other state law for the protection of our environment, including our rivers, and equally the people who choose to make our community their home, such as you. This plan primarily describes the existing facilities, procedures, policy, along with potential future actions North Bend intends to take to ensure that it meets its legal obligations to its citizens and users and the greater community and environment around us. This plan has been in process with our regulatory oversight agencies for over a year. It has likewise been through numerous public reviews and comment sessions, both here at home in the city and in front of our regulatory agencies, and most recently with King County Council review and approval, as you heard earlier tonight. Throughout the year, we listened and we addressed the concerns of those agencies and the tribes, and incorporated many proposed changes where appropriate. This plan has the approval of the Department of Ecology, King County Utility Technical Review Committee, the preliminary approval of the Department of Health, and the King County Council. We have met all of the criteria required by each of those agencies and the DOH, who is the actual primary approval body, certifying that our plan provides for the sound and safe delivery of water, only waiting council's final action before they can issue their decision. We have and we will continue to engage with the tribes on meeting all of our water obligations for a healthy river and our water environment, while ensuring the safe, potable water delivery to our citizens. Those of you who were not aware of these facts or being led, excuse me, or being led by comments on social media, let me provide you some context. I've spent over a year now generally not responding to private interest groups who I feel have been spewing innuendos, half-truths, and alternative facts about the city's water resources and what this water system plan is and what it would purportedly do. It has been, in fact, amazing to me at times to listen to positions being proposed against conserving water resources while purporting to have greater concern for the river's health than any of you or us on the city staff or council. Early last year, when it appeared that we might reach agreement with Salal Water Association on a water use agreement, and I let that be known to the public, we were soundly condemned at the idea of making an agreement with Salal. Several months later, when it became apparent that we likely would not be able to reach agreement with Salal on that same agreement, we were then condemned for not being able to reach agreement with them. To be clear, I am not speaking to the mass number of folks who are on the call tonight, those in the community who have concerns. I am speaking to the few virulent people spreading misinformation. I choose to trust in science, in our professionals, and in our regulators, who have all weighed in that this plan meets all requirements. Again, and finally, I want to assure you, this plan assures our ability to ensure we have the right facilities, the right professional support, and the right mechanisms for ensuring that we continue to deliver safe drinking water to you, our citizens. Council, thank you for allowing me that pause. Water system plan, I believe again, Mr. Loudenbach, this came through your committee. So as chair, would you like to introduce a motion?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Motion to approve AB 21-017, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 1728 adopted a July 2020 water system plan and adopting December 2020 water system plan as first and final reading.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I see a second by Mr. Garcia. Thank you very much. Mr. Loudenbach, would you please speak to the motion?
I think that Mr. Rigos and the staff and those who testified tonight have made their positions abundantly clear. And I believe that the best case going forward is to approve the plan. And I would encourage you to pass. And rest assured that we are interested in establishing the correct mitigation system in place before any further development is approved.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, you were the second. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I want to first start off and by saying thank you to everybody that came tonight. Both meetings were well attended, and I know that there's going to be people upset with the my vote tonight. And I understand that we don't see eye to eye on this issue, but I truly do appreciate the participation. Some of you, we've spent hours on the phone debating this very topic. And I don't think that we've ever really come to a full agreement that we were on the same page. I feel like we're to this spot now because we have relied on a contract with Salal for far too long. I feel like we should have moved on in the past, and we probably would have maybe had some of these things online already. It was brought up that the Salal group came out to a resounding no, that they wanted a contract with Salal. That message has been heard. We're working on other plans. The notion of purchasing water directly from SPU was brought up tonight. So I hope there's some, discussion on that. I know that some of us on the council have brought that up, but what this boils down to is we're in a spot where we have people that oppose our plan, and I know that some of you are going to feel that I'm not hearing you. What I am going to say is I'm tasked to do what's best for the city in representing you. And at this point in time, I haven't seen any science or expertise that tells me that what the city's plan is incorrect. I haven't been presented any facts that say anything other than I'm trusting what the experts that we have is telling me. Mr. Rigos and Mr. Porter at Mrs. DeNovio, Don DeBerg, they're telling me that we will be all right if we do this. And that's what I have to believe because I haven't seen any science that tells me otherwise. One other thing I kind of want to address tonight too is, I trust them. They've earned my trust. And until that is broken, which I don't have any reason to believe it will be, that's what I'm going to base my decisions off of. The water conservation ordinance, if Mr. Rigos called me tomorrow and said, we have found unlimited mitigation water and we don't need to have the conservation ordinance, I would still not repeal the conservation ordinance. It's the right thing to do, and that's why I voted for it. It's just, to me, it just doesn't go away. It is part of being good stewards of our resources. It's up there with the plastic bags. It's just, it is protecting our environment. I feel like it's unfortunate that we're in this spot, but I do trust that we are working to get it resolved. The Army National Guard, again, not approved without a mitigation source that can do it. This is, Mr. Rigo said earlier today that he's turned people away with other development projects. We understand that we need a backup secondary source of mitigation water. That being said, I will be supporting this plan tonight. I'm sorry that many of you don't agree with me in that support. I hope that those of us that have talked in the past will still be able to talk about moving forward and getting this resolved. But at this point in time, I'm believing my experts. I'm believing the Department of Ecology experts. And until something comes along that tells me I shouldn't, that's where I'm voting.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Any other member of council? Seeing Mr. Elwood.
Well, I'm sorry, I just have a brief statement and a few questions, but if Mr. Rosen has some comments, I'll hold.
All right, Mr. Rosen, we'll go to you first.
Sure, I'll speak to it. Over the last, I'd say several months, I've gotten, like the rest of my fellow council members, so many emails regarding this issue. I feel that some of the folks who are talking about the water issue are also mixing in growth into that conversation. Now, I can't speak for everyone and I don't know where everyone stands, but in the emails that I read, oftentimes I see the opposition to the water plan intermingled with the opposition to growth. To those folks, I'd like to speak a little bit tonight and address that. As the only council member that voted against the Dahlgren property and is probably the most consistent opponent to growth, especially residential growth, this water plan needs to be approved. We, as a city, need to ensure that we have water in the future, not just for residential growth, which I happen to be opposed to, but there's commercial growth. We want to see possibly a hotel. We want to see some jobs created in the valley. For that, we need water. But we also want to preserve the option for future councils and future residents to determine what future they want. Without water, we tie their hands. If you're opposed to growth, there are other ways to go at it other than the water plan. There's annexation, there's zoning, there's density. Participate in our conversations. 2 weeks ago, we had a lengthy conversation, this entire council, talking about density. Get involved in those discussions because that's where the growth elements are determined. In addition to that, this entire council has committed to doing a survey of some sort this year. We want to hear from you exactly how you feel about growth. What do you want to see in your city as we move forward? I'll speak for other council members and I try not to do it, but this time I will. This council wants to hear from you and it wants to listen. We need to know where you stand to help guide our votes as we move forward on growth. It's a complicated issue, absolutely, but we need to hear from it. We need the input. If there's anything that you get out of tonight, please give us that feedback when you get this survey this year. It is crucial for us as we move forward to help us determine how we vote and how we look as a city. So work with us on the growth aspect. And I think a lot of the other talk about, Mr. Garcia addressed it, I think, rather well about the water plan and the experts that we have in the city. And I agree with him on that. We have good folks here that have worked hard. So let's try to separate the growth and the water plan issue a little bit. And I understand that it's not everybody. I know there's some here that are absolutely concerned with the environment. I get it. And I appreciate your concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Back to you, Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Jonathan and Chris, for your words. So I have a couple, I guess, comments that I'd like to make, but also some other additional questions that weren't like related to the clarification phase of our earlier round. Specifically, I want to talk to, or just mention, call out Miss Bailey. I have heard you. And when you said that nobody's responding to you and so forth, that did make my heart break a little bit. I went back through my notes as many of you were talking and was just thumbing through the notes from our May 26th town hall. And there were a lot of great comments and questions that were posed by many of you at that time. And I think that between then and now, quite a few of those questions that were posed have actually been answered. So I feel like the city and us as a council have been responsive to a lot of the information that we're getting. And one thing that I'd like to add to that is I also agree with Mr. Garcia that it's fantastic that there are so many people like you coming out and saying, hey, wait, stop. This doesn't make sense for me. I need clarification. This is what makes us better decision makers. It forces us and challenges us to actually say, wait a minute, let's think a little bit clearer. I thought I was in line with this, or I didn't think I was in line with that. But until we actually hear the voices of people that are concerned, we're doing things in our own little bubble here, and that's not appropriate. So I commend and appreciate all the feedback, even though some of it has been negative or less than productive, but I still, in that I recognize that there's passion. And I want to thank Mr. Morissette for clarifying the what your perspective is on the water conservation ordinance, or as Ms. Buckner called it, the water transfer ordinance. And so with that, I just have a few extra questions that I'd like to ask Mr. Rigos or anybody else on staff, and then a couple questions for Mr. Kenyon from a legal perspective. So regarding the water conservation ordinance, Mr. Rigos, specifically about this notion that we passed that as a means to secure water for the National Guard. And what I'm taking away from that sentiment is that if the National Guard comes in, they start consuming water, we're going to take away from the water usage of our citizens. I don't see how that is written into the water conservation ordinance. In fact, I think there was a lot of planning that went into using average previous year usage per household, so that there were different mechanisms in place that were actually going to say, hey, look, if you use this much water, it's based on this benchmark, not the whole collection or the usage of the National Guard. Am I right in that regard?
When we were preparing the water conservation ordinance, I don't think there was any talk on how the National Guard is integrated with the conservation ordinance.
Yeah, and how I liken it is many years ago, I lived in California, Northern California, and they were diverting water to Southern California. And we had to put in, the city had to put in a lot of, had to put in water conservation ordinance. You were only allowed to use water at certain times so that they could essentially sell the water to Southern California. And I was a little frustrated with that. So I can recognize the frustration that some of our citizens may have if they think that that's in fact what this particular ordinance is, but I'm just not seeing that in the ordinance. So I just want to be clear that the conservation ordinance is not a tool to reserve water for the National Guard or a bigger development and then take away the water usage from the typical citizen. I just want to be clear that that's your understanding too.
Yeah, that's my understanding too.
Okay, perfect. And then to Mr. Brewer, I believe, Brewster, sorry, apologize for mispronouncing your name. You had mentioned the idea that you felt like it was a threat, and that was something that really concerned us, and we put a lot of thought into that. I mean, we didn't approve that overnight. And one of the things that we incorporated into the water conservation ordinance was specifically to avoid that feeling. Now, we knew it was unavoidable for people who may not have time or were aware of the details of the ordinance, but that's why we factored in a warning system. And we had much dialogue about how the city or whoever the director is that's in charge of going after, if you will, people who are abusing water, how that process would lay out. And so there was plenty of testimony and plenty of on the record conversation that the intent there was not to threaten people, that we wanted to warn people, and it was considered more of a friendly notion. So I just wanted to address that, and I feel for you if you felt that was threatening, and that was not the intent of those particular elements. I also wanted to comment on this wildfire notion. We've been hearing that on and off, and we actually spoke with the chief of the fire department, Eastside Fire and Rescue, and I believe all that commentary was on record. So perhaps staff, if I'm fumbling here, you could step in and refresh or recall or make my statements more accurate. But my general takeaway from the chief was that water conservation ordinance that we had in place and people conserving and not using extra water was no way going to increase the probability or likelihood of wildfires in North Bend. In fact, one comment that I recall him saying specifically is, even if you had a garden hose, you wouldn't be able to treat a wildfire. So if you have a wildfire coming through your neighborhood, it's not a result of dried grass. It's a bigger concern than that. And the water conservation ordinance wasn't putting us at risk of increased wildfires. Is your recollection similar to that?
Yeah, that's exactly true. And I would add to that the true threat of wildfire would probably begin way outside city limits, right? It's not going to start inside city limits. It's going to start way out in unincorporated King County. And the city's actually surrounded by unincorporated King County roads, Mount Si Road, Wilderness Rim, Middle Fork Road, Snoqualmie Valley Uplands, all of which their water purveyor is Salal Water Association outside city limits. So we don't regulate Salal's water outside city limits.
Excuse me, Mr. Regos. Don, would you please remove Mr. Thomas from the meeting? I'm not going to put up with that behavior. Thank you.
So people in Salal Water Association could water their yard all day if they wanted to.
And I really quickly, Brendan, because this is a topic that, be careful on what you say. There are areas now within our community that are in the city that can be affected. So that was made clear by the chief in the last conversation. The only way you're going to protect your property isn't by having green, luscious grass and low trees. It's by not having any fuels around your household to begin with. And that was made clear. And you will begin to see a lot of programs come out from Firewise that will explain that. But the bottom line is you're better off with less growth, less vegetation, and less fuel by your house for a fire.
Thank you for that, because that's exactly what I remember as you said that. So thank you for that clarification. The other piece that I wanted to just clarify, Mr. Regos, is when we're talking about the chillers, that again is specifically if we need to use the pond water to mitigate, which is not the highest priority of a mitigation solution. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're evaluating the chiller idea. We have not designed it yet. We have calculated the increase of Cascade on the water temperature at the river. So if we add the pond and the well at Cascade, it increases the temperature of the river at that location 0.006 degrees Fahrenheit. That's only if we have the well or the pond functioning. Most of the time we would just have the well functioning, and it's a very close temperature difference from the river. So at that point, it's 0.0006 degree Fahrenheit. But that's the only impact at the South Fork Snoqualmie River. As you get further downstream where the salmon are and so forth, it's another 1/10. So you'd be looking at a 0.00006 degree increase in the water temperature. And for that difference, the Snoqualmie tribe and possibly Department of Ecology might like to see us cool the water so that it's a 0 degree change.
Got it. And thank you for the decimal points there. That helps make the conversation about the warmer water temperature a little bit more precise. So I appreciate that. Another question for you, Mr. Regos, is, many have been citing, past history, the water moratorium and so forth as evidence or proof that the city's been reckless in its water stewardship. Would you mind just going through, in the years since the moratorium has been lifted, just some key milestones that may demonstrate to folks in this meeting that the city has been becoming more of a responsible steward of its water? I know we've talked about some, but I would really appreciate if you would indulge me with just maybe even repeating some, but adding more to that list if you have that.
Well, that's a great question, Brendan. And I would preface that by saying that 25 years ago, when the city of North Bend was experiencing those water problems, none of our current council members were council members. There was no similar staff. It's a totally new group here at City of North Bend than what you saw in the late 90s. That said, since 2007, we've built the Centennial Well, which allowed the city to become the first water mitigation purveyor in Snoqualmie River watershed. We do drop for drop mitigation. Anytime the river's low, we're the only purveyor in Snoqualmie or Skykomish or Snohomish watershed that does that. So we can be proud of that other purveyors, whether they're Monroe, Duval, Carnation, Sammamish Plateau, et cetera, they don't do that. So we're already ahead of the curve in terms of mitigation. I appreciated the lady from the Orca Conservancy that came on to speak tonight. So hopefully she takes that home with her, that realizes that, hey, North Bend's already doing a good environmental steward in that regard. We do that mitigation from moving water from the Cedar River to the Snoqualmie River watershed. A couple of years ago, we upgraded Mount Si Springs with a variable frequency drive, so we could be more efficient at the water over there. We hired a computer SCADA manager in 2016 to ensure that the mitigation system is extremely reliable, and he is great at running the computers for the city. So I'm not a software engineer, but he is, and he can run all the SCADA equipment. We have adopted building codes that are more energy efficient, smaller pumps of water in toilets, more efficient fixtures. All of that has actually reduced the production of water in the city at our two sources over the last 10 years. The city took more water in 10 years ago now than they do now. And we have more residents now. You wouldn't think that's the case, but that's exactly what's happened. We've also replaced 4 major water mains that was spoke to earlier, just old asbestos concrete water pipe. It deteriorates. Over time, we've done that in the last 6 years. So we've replaced a couple hundred water meters. We got a lot to go. We got a lot of work there left. We got another 1,600 to go. We've adopted the water conservation ordinance. Again, I don't think there's any purveyor in the Snoqualmie or Snohomish or Skykomish watershed that has as strict a water conservation ordinance as we do. And then preparing this water system plan is exactly that. It's this next step that outlines many of these mitigation projects and DSL projects that we need to do.
Thank you, and I appreciate you going through that. And sorry if that seemed like I put you on the spot, but I appreciate that. My next couple of questions are for you, Mr. Kenyon. Is the city legally responsible for issuing water permits?
Yes.
And if we don't issue water permits, what can happen in that event?
Again, assuming we have the water, then we're going to get sued by a development applicant who files a complete application to build. And
Okay.
we're going to lose that lawsuit too.
So I'm clear, even if we have some water and we decide we're done issuing permits, we can be sued for that, correct?
Yes, I mean, in the absence of a moratorium, but as council knows, a moratorium is a short-term fix, not a long-term way to stop growth.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought up the moratorium, because that leads to my next question, which is, do you think there's enough evidence that you've heard that the city should or must work or put in place a moratorium, water moratorium?
It does not sound like it to me. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but based on the facts that I've seen, it does not sound like it to me. Council always.
No, that's perfect. And as legal representative of the city, are you confident in the science and the professionals that have weighed in on all of the planning and everything that has gotten to us to this point?
Yeah, I am, and particularly on this, because as I think the mayor mentioned earlier and others, this is just a plan. And I don't mean just in a pejorative sense. I mean just a plan in the sense that it doesn't authorize us to build anything. When Mark's mitigation projects make progress, and we're getting ready to get DOE approval for those mitigation projects, DOE will approve those in the form of an appealable order. And that's where many of the complaints that you heard tonight are properly addressed.
Great, thank you, Mr. Kenyon. And now just finally, to everybody else that's on the call, I'm asking these questions for a number of reasons. We've asked them before. We want to make sure to get them on the record. We want to make sure everybody's crystal clear, because this is a very important topic for us. And I want folks to know that we don't take it softly. We aren't rubber stamping, as somebody mentioned to me in an email, these type of things. We take it very seriously. We're relying on professionals, scientists, folks that know this. And there've been some commentary that you wouldn't plan your house budget or your finances this way, and I disagree with that. You would hire professionals, especially if you're looking at retirement or looking at financial investments, and you would run Monte Carlo scenarios to understand if you're good
enough, and if your income is good enough to be able to retire at a certain age. So I would say that the city has done adequate due diligence to get us to this point. I trust, as my colleague, Mr. Garcia said, in the experts that have come to the table. I trust our legal counsel. I trust my gut. And I understand and I appreciate that many of you are upset for a number of different reasons that may not have anything to do with this particular plan, but this plan is the vehicle for you to express yourself on that point. And I do appreciate and I do respect that. And so with that, that's my final commentary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Mr. Gotthelf.
Well, I thank all my colleagues for the comments they made, and I appreciate it. You know, one of the other comments was made is that we're in an area that has got a lot of rain, and that, you know, people think, well, why do we have to conserve water? Well, because it's not it's a limited resource, and that's the biggest, you know, reason, whether we have a lot of rain or not, that we have a conservation ordinance. And like Chris said, that conservation ordinance should stay and will stay even if we have all the mitigation. Another point that I think is important to bring up is we are the only place within the Snohomish, Snoqualmie watershed that does do mitigation. Okay, so at the end of the day, if we're really concerned about the river, we should be looking all throughout this community, not at North Bend, that we're looking at what, 10,000 citizens and how much water that's going to affect. The whole watershed needs to be looked at. With that being said, we can't move forward or even come up with ideas without having a plan in place. And that's what this is about. We've been talking about this for what, at least since August. We've had multiple, we've had at least 2 or 3 town halls since we've been trying to get this done. Recently had another town hall tonight. It's been approved by the Department of DOH. It's been approved by King County. It's been approved by the UTRC. We can't move forward with additional things or water until we, you know, get all this approved. And what we need to do is what's right for the citizens of North Bend is get this forward. I understand there's concern. I understand there's been issues in the past, but I would look at other cities and say we're probably no different than other cities. Not sure that's a good thing or not, but that's the reality of it. We've worked hard on this. We've listened to input. We understand some people who have been part of this. They've been able to put their input, such as the Friends of the Family. They've been in every one of the lawsuits. They've put all their information forward to the same regulatory authorities that we do. And all those regulatory authorities have approved it. There's always going to be more information they're going to find. It's all been presented. It's not like we're the only ones doing it and haven't been talking about it. So I'm in favor of this plan.
Thank you, Mr. Godhelp. Anyone else? I think we've heard from everyone but Ms. Miller, Ms. Cullen. I'm trying to look around, find you on my screen if you want to make comment. Speak up. Ms. Miller, I see you unmuted. Did you want to speak?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. You know, right now I'm listening to rain pelt on my rooftop and my brain goes to a water catcher somewhere placed on the property that can collect that water, and therefore being creative to be able to use that water for a period of time during the summer or spring to, you know, plant for plants. That's where my brain went. And that's what it takes to be creative. And this is a super difficult scenario. We've worked really hard. I appreciate everybody's effort. This is not a perfect world, sadly, but we do live in an amazing environment, and I wish to do all I can to protect it. I know my other fellow council members feel similarly. I do care about wildlife, the fish, of course, the salmon, the orca. I really appreciate all the commentary the emails that have come out, and that you find folks showed up tonight to talk further into your passion. I do believe that we need to educate and continue to educate our constituents about everything that we do. But in order to do that, we need to have an open-mindedness, all of us, to be able to listen to everybody. And we're trying to do that here. And I know everyone, including myself, is doing their best to provide a truthful and honest commentary. We're looking for answers. We're asking questions. Sometimes we don't ask all the questions in front of council meetings, but we're doing research in the background. I'll rush to this point. For example, today I was at the sewage treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, for a tour, an excellent tour, given by two individuals that I respect with our city, Don DeBerg and Jeff, and also Rob, Mayor Rob and Heather had a tour, I guess it was 2 days ago. These are the things we want to do because we care about you. We care about the city going forward. We do not want to make mistakes that will put us in a bad direction. We're working hard, and I want you to know that that's important for you to know, I think. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Cullen, did you want to speak to this?
Sure. So when I initially wanted to run for city council, my first thought was I want to stop growth in North Bend. I like North Bend the way it is. I don't want to see these apartments. I don't want to see all these houses. I want it to stay cute and rural, and I want no changes. And as I got involved on the council, I realized there's all these rules with King County, and also that we are a bedroom community to Seattle, and people want to live here. It is beautiful. It is an easy commute, and it's hard to stop it. And I can't blame anybody for wanting to move here. We all did. Everybody that's part of the Zoom call right now moved to North Bend and lives in a house that at one point was on a forest or a pasture. So we are all guilty of growth. What I will say is for the water conservation ordinance, I grew up in Southern California. We always conserved water. I would be sitting at North Bend Bar and Grill and the waitress would bring me water that I didn't even ask for. And I was like, what is this? We're just throwing water away. So I do believe in the water conservation ordinance. I do wish North Bend could stay cute and rural, but we're evolving and it's sad, but it's happening. And we need to evolve in a way that works for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cullen. I believe all members of council have had an opportunity to speak at this time. So before calling for a vote, I just want to cycle back and see if anything anyone else has said sparked further thought for anyone. I'm seeing no hands. So the motion before you is to approve AB 21-017, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 1728, adoption of July 2020 Water System Plan, and adopting December 2020 Water System Plan as a first and final reading. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, the motion carries and it is unanimous. Thank you very much, council. Thank you especially for your very thoughtful comments. I appreciate the care that you took, especially addressing the folks on the phone tonight and on this call. I want to again say to all of the audience, and I do understand that a few of my comments may sound harsh on this particular issue. I do indeed appreciate your input and your insight. We will at times have a disagreement. Sometimes it can be on facts and sometimes it is on general philosophy or direction. That is the way the system works, of course, but that does not reduce my respect for your concerns or your willingness to bring those issues forward. So I do thank you for all your input. It was a great turnout tonight. Thank you for that. With that, we will move to Mayor, Council, Administrator concerns and initiatives. Mr. Godhelf, would you like to lead us off?
I have none tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Miller. Ms. Miller, you're muted.
Oh, Brendan, are you laughing at me? Because I should now for sure. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to relay on one of my walks down our fabulous trails, one of our trail systems recently. I ran into a trail, Friends of the Trail. This is a nonprofit that goes around. I don't know if everybody knows about that. Fine group of individuals. They always look for volunteers. But anyway, this moment, I had a conversation, face masks, of course, on, but they had pulled out over 600 pounds of garbage out of our beautiful woods. So there are people out there doing extraordinary things. You walk around every day with your mask on, I'm sure, but just know that there's incredible people doing incredible things. It's not always negative in our arena out here. It's a beautiful place. So let's try to keep it beautiful. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night, and please stay safe.
Thank you for that reminder. And for those who don't know, the city does support that organization in their efforts to do that, financially support. Thank you. Mr. Loudenbeck.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing to add tonight. Thanks to everybody who participated. We certainly do consider all the information that's brought before us. And we've been working on this plan for 2 years. And it's hopefully finally in the books. And we can move on to the hard work of getting mitigation. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loudenbeck. Mr. Rosen.
Nothing more tonight. I think we've all had an opportunity to speak our mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Cullen.
So my heart is feeling a little heavy from this vote, but I would like to say to the citizens that sent us emails, that spoke tonight at the town hall and also at the city council, we do hear you, we do listen to you. Don't be disheartened. If you love this town, I know that you do, and some other situation arises, please feel free to please contact us again. I know this was a rough one. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Cullen. Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll echo some of those sentiments as well. Appreciate everybody coming out and the passion that they put into it. And I know it's not always good when a governing body votes a way you don't want them to vote. But as long as they trust that we're doing our job and doing the due diligence, I hope that they can understand that. I also wanted to address, I think it was Mr. Hansen had brought up some points about repairing sidewalks and so forth. I like that. I'd like to figure out how we can take some more action on that. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear everything he was saying, so I hope some other people were able to catch that. But so I appreciate those commentary, and also talking about the making sure that the passage through Old and New Side View does have some, we contemplate making it safer for pedestrians. So I appreciate those comments and the comments of everybody else who showed up tonight. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Pro Tem Garcia.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to wish everybody the sentiment of please stay safe, wear your mask, social distance. I haven't heard an official number, but I think our numbers are back down on our COVID. Haven't heard that we're the highest per capita in the state anymore. So I wish that. Truly want to thank everybody for coming and speaking and sending the emails and participating. I've lived here for a little over 40 years, and now coming up on half of those years, 20, I've been involved in some fashion or another of trying to make North Bend a better place. And I say that because I've been in your position before where I was on the descending opinion at times when I previously started. I would bet that Beth Mosh remembers me coming to meetings and saying, oh, this and that. And then I got started on the planning commission, and Beth started teaching me some of the rules and guidance of the ways that we do things. I've served on the Alpine Days committee. I've participated in schools. I've coached your children. And one thing has like just kind of popped up that just kind of made me go, oh, wow, that's me. You know, it was brought that some of us are business owners and developers. And I guess now that since I've built a building in town, I guess I would be considered the developer. And I've never really pictured myself as such. I've always just thought of myself as somebody that cared about our town. And I bring this up because I truly believe that the 8 of us that are elected, our staff, our commissions, and everybody truly does what they feel is best for our town. I've always voted for what I feel is best. And there's been times where it has cost my business. If you think that I'm sitting here at the city council meetings for sometimes 20, 30 hours a week, spending city business to make my business better, it doesn't work that way. I mean, we're basically volunteers. And I truly, like I said, I truly believe that we all have given our best. I've poured 20 years of my heart and soul into trying to make North Bend a better place. And it's just part of the process, but I would encourage some of you, I'm noticing that we've lost some people. I would encourage some of you that if you don't like the way that this is going, get involved. There's going to be some seats up for election this year. You know, there's commissions and committees that come up. Like I said, I was in your spot at one point in time and didn't, you know, agree with what was happening in North Bend, but I got involved, and I hope that at the end of my time, I've made a difference to make North Bend a better place. I'm sorry that we don't always agree on everything, but we hear you. We might not agree, but we hear you, and we appreciate your time and effort. So everybody just have a good night, and let's remember a long time ago, there was a meeting about what we wanted North Bend to be, and it talked about rural character. And the community leaders of the time, I sat in on that meeting, and I remember just being in awe of, I'm in the room with these people, right? And what they described rural character is the way that we treat each other. It's seeing people you know at the grocery store and saying hi, and being respectful and neighborly, and the small town feel of how people interact is what rural character was all about. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I think that's quite amazing bookends there. One of our newest members on council, Ms. Colin, and you as kind of the bookends in service, and we have quite a variety across our council, and so it's nice to hear about engage, and there are things to do, and as you mentioned, so thank you for that. Mr. Miller, so are you trying to get my attention, Mr. Elwood?
Yes, I am. Sorry. I did a grave oversight. I wanted to thank Mr. Rigos for your input. I know I was hammering you with a lot of questions. So your demeanor, your honesty, your integrity was great. So I just didn't want to walk away without saying thank you for that tonight. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Miller, we haven't heard from you yet tonight.
Well, and you probably won't because it's a late hour and I know everybody's tired, but I think the council did a good job on a very tough issue. Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. All right. And I will try and keep my closing comments brief. Few things, though, that I do want the community at large to know, and I'm thankful that we do have the members still with us that have stayed. Starting on March 1st, the city's solid waste and recycling provider, Republic Services, will launch new garbage and recycling collection routes. About 50%, about half of the customers in the city will be assigned new service days. The changes in the routes is designed to increase efficiency and balance to existing North Bend routes and decrease the time Republic trucks are on city roads. Republic Services will be contacting those affected by the route changes. For more information about the change, including Republic customer service contact information, is available on the news section of the city's website. And I would say under the utilities tab as well, I believe there is a link to Republic Services itself. Secondly, under recent changes made to the state's COVID-19 Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery Plan, King County has moved into phase 2 as of yesterday. This phase allows for opening at 25% capacity of indoor dining, movie theaters, and fitness facilities. A complete list of what is allowed during phase 2 is available again on the news section of the city's website. Also available on that news section is a link to the King County Public Health Vaccine dashboard. Among other things, the dashboard features information on how many have been vaccinated for COVID-19, the demographics thereof, and a number of vaccines allotted to providers in King County. Again, we point this out to you. The information is out there. Yes, the most recent trend that I've seen is that we are starting to beat that curve down again, but we're doing that through staying vigilant with the mask, with the distance, and respecting even the new allowances. So please keep it up. Thanks. One final welcome again. Happy Groundhog's Day to everyone. Puxatawny Phil got his call this morning. We are in store for 6 more weeks of winter. Despite that furry rodents prediction, I think we can agree that when we finally do see spring, it will be one that's filled with beauty, brightness, and hope. And we do want you to stay healthy and safe and celebrate that with us. We will get out of this together. Council, just a reminder, we will be having a special work study next Tuesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And that's all I have for you this evening. If council has nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We only have 12 minutes for 4 hours. We could make it.
No. Motion to adjourn.
Please make a motion.
Alan did. Second.
I've heard a motion and a second, but I can't identify who.
I motioned.
I've got a Rosen motion and an Allen second there. So
I think that's the other way around.
And Mr. Garcia can
Mr.
spend the rest of his night here by himself.
Oh, thank you much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr.
This is
Garcia
why
is
you're
opposed to
safe.
adjourning. We will leave him on the call. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the audience. I appreciate your attendance tonight.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.